This week on Home by Novogratz. In this week's episode, Bob and Courtney meet up with a developer who wants them to stage a townhouse he's hoping to sell in the West Village. It's on Minetta Lane, and it's not quite finished. It's a very unusual, historic townhouse and carriage house that once had a famous floral arranger that worked for Studio 54 living there. So it's very well known, very famous place. Basically, the Novogratz are going to stage it for a big party one night. They're going to invite brokers, potential buyers, and the media to create a buzz about the place. The Novogratz are trying to work out the design around the dining room table, and Breaker is banging on the new drum set Bob bought for him. So Bob asks him to take a break for 10 to 15 minutes so that they can work. 10 to 15 minutes doesn't seem like very long to come up with the whole design, but when you see what they did, you can see how it only took them 10 to 15 minutes to come up with it. They decide to stage just one room, a two-story living room, which is very bare and kind of minimalist. And oddly, they decide to paint over the nicely hewn concrete floors that are so in right now. They meet with a florist in Brooklyn and come up with the theme for the party. And tip number one is to hang garlands from the ceiling for a festive look at any party. Amidst the flowers, they decide they're going to have a bunch of candles. And tip number two is to cluster photos to bring some color and interest to the arrangement. Tip number three is not to forget to add a sealant after you paint a concrete floor. Or better yet, don't paint it at all. They hire a glitter artist to create a few large pieces for the space. And tip number four is to put big art in big rooms. They hang a few vintage looking chandeliers in the tall space because that's what the Novogratz do. And tip number five comes thanks to the lawyers at HGTV. No sooner does Courtney get finished saying that a chandelier needs to be hung low to look good, and the official tip at the bottom of the screen is to make sure that you hang it at least 7 feet tall in corridors so you don't bump your head. Tip number 6 comes from glitter artist Chamomile. Hang artwork so that the center of the painting is at 5 feet 5 inches off the floor, because that's the average line of sight. Once the floral arrangements arrive, the Novogratz aren't happy with them, so oddly they rip them all apart and just throw flowers all over the place. At one point, Courtney says she wants to scatter the flowers for a rustic look, and then 5 minutes later tells the developer that she scattered them around for a modern party vibe. Bob buys some funky retro furniture from the 70s so people can sit on things. There's some bright greens that are kind of nice. And oddly enough, they buy the furniture and then into storage for future projects. During the staging, they make sure to put one of their own books right center on the coffee table. And unofficially, tip number 7 is, don't be afraid of shameless self-promotion. Okay, not really. The party's a big hit, and we're told at the end that there were 2 offers made on the space, but they didn't say how much they were for or whether they were accepted.